Hello and welcome to the Presenter Mastery Podcast. I'm Lucas, CEO of Headgain and amateur speaker.
I'm David, expert speaker.
And together, we are weekly guides to unlocking the power of presentation skills. And in today's episode, David, I wanted to dive into a thing that's been burning in my mind. And it's in Sweden, you're known as one thing. And then internationally, in all our marketing, we are talking about you in another way. So there's kind of like two different personas or personalities.
Ooh.
Or
True, yeah.
Losing the working title.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like this. So for 25 plus years, you've been working as a presentation coach.
Yeah.
You've been understanding presentations from the human psychology to biology, how to optimize presentations, how to do storytelling, all these things. You are the presentation coach. That's what you're known for. That's what you go to Microsoft to do, to Google to do, to Oracle.
True.
This is what they want. And then you released the book, High on Life, 6 Substances in Swedish. And since then, you've been categorized, niched down as a life coach in Sweden. And it's something that's been a little bit hard to manage with the marketing for.
Sorry, man.
Quite all right. It's what you do. But I wanted you to be able to maybe provide me and also the listeners to an answer to this, because when we look at the Instagram, for example, this is purely about life skills, and it's something that you've gone deep down into. But that's not what we usually do and talk about in our webinars. So it's an interesting mix of things here that I just wanted to get some clarity on.
Damn, I can see that's bugging you. I can see that could definitely be possible. And it may not be super clear. I think a person like me, you have to go through 25 years of experiences in this to understand how absolutely like crystal clear the connection is between these two subjects. And it first started occurring to me after maybe I've been doing my trainings for, say, 7 or 8 years. I did presentation skills training, like just crystal clear stuff. We did rhetorics, we did structure, we did how to start, how to end, how to spice, body language, voice. That's freaking awesome 2-day thing. When people left that, they said that this 2-day training gave me more than when I attended like a 3-4 day life growth or life development training. I'm like, wow, how strange. But then it dawned on me, and what I learned was that in a presentation skills training like mine, you have to push your boundaries. You have to take a step outside of your comfort zone. And I gave them skills on how to do that. So imagine a person with, say, 10 layers of a comfort zone. And these people are stuck in like layer 3. So I gave them skills on how to move into layer 4, layer 5, layer 6, layer 7, and still feel comfortable. Like I literally had people so many times like red-eyed before they came into the training. And I'm like, are you okay? And they went like, yeah, I don't want to be here. My boss has sent me. I don't want to be here. He thinks, she thinks it's good for me to be here. I don't want to be here. I'm like, just if you sit at the front, I'll keep an extra eye on you and I'll help you out especially. They leave 2 days later, again, tears in their eyes. And they're like, again, bawling and crying. And I asked these people then why. And they said, I never thought that this was possible. I spent the last 20 years stuck in, say, they don't say this, but say layer 3. In 2 days, I have moved further away from my initial comfort zone than I have ever, I feel so free, David. You cannot even imagine. It's not just presentations. This will help me in communicating with my spouse, with my friends, with my colleagues. This will help me when I'm negotiating, when I'm doing my next interview. This will help me in every situation where I communicate, which is literally everywhere. You do not know how much this means to me, David. And people come back to me 10 years after and they say, that was the day it shifted. So getting those skills to move outside of that layer 3 into maybe layer 7, that is what I call the inner growth, or your self-development, or your, what did you say I was branded as? Life coach?
Yeah.
Life. So that's where it starts. And I'd say you won't become a great presenter, a great communicator until your inner self, your inner communication is in synchronicity with your outer communication. So that was step 1, Lucas. Right? So that's where I come from.
So you started off with the presentation skills training for companies, or what? Like, how did you frame the training?
Yeah, just for anyone.
Yeah. So to work on your presentation skills.
Yeah.
Come to me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then years in, you realize people are actually getting better in life, so to say, from this. When did you start shifting the message about the course that you were, the trainings that you were doing? Did you start changing it, or was it always the same?
I always called that one presentation skills, step 1. And then I had presentation skills step 2, which included a bit more of the elements when it came to self-growth and the tools known in cognitive behavioral therapy on how you can grow yourself. So I started working on that a bit. But what really gave me the breakthrough was when I started studying presentation skills, not from a psychological perspective, but from a neuroscientific and biochemical perspective. And when I started, this was probably like 15 years from now, I started diving into dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and cortisol, testosterone, GABA, glutamate, and all of that. And I started using that in my teachings. So it was obvious that if you are a salesperson, you need to create dopamine in the person buying. You also need to create trust through oxytocin. So on top of presentation skills step 1, I did this presentation skills step 2 training, which was then focused on how can you create these substances in other people? How can you tell a story that induces an increase of oxytocin, like empathy? So I kept on doing that. And luckily, I did that because, as you know, and if you've listened to this before, I realized I was depressed 8 years ago. And it was due to my knowledge of these substances that I managed to hack my own depression. But in that journey, damn, there's a before and after when it comes to David as a presenter. And everyone I meet tells me, before my depression, I was clinical. I was so freaking sharp. I did every skill in the right timing, in the right way, with the right gaze, with the right content. I was clinical. And they loved it. I was still seen as among the best. But after I hacked my depression, what they say is, you feel human. You feel relatable. You feel like you actually care. You feel like you're here for me. And that is what is most important of everything in your life at the moment. To be here for me. And that shift into that is just remarkable, Have you ever seen a presenter in these 2 states?
Someone that really cares and someone that just presents?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a massive difference, right?
Yeah. Well, you can definitely feel when someone is passionate about their subject and they live and breathe it and they are emotional about it. Well, then you get emotional about it.
Yeah.
And then you have someone else who is just basically reading it. Dare I say, a politician just reading from their script?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, or news. It's just something that's being presented.
Yeah.
And it's complete differences.
So if we look at this from like levels, we start with level 1. It's just I'm reading the script either from my head because I've learned the script in my head, or I'm reading it from notes. They're kind of equally as bad. So that's kind of like step 1, step 2, which you're talking about. And then maybe step 3, step 4, step 5 is passion. Okay? But it's not step 10. Like step 3, 4, 5 is still you just looking at a person who is filled with themselves and their passion about their subject. And that's contagious. So I'm saying that is way better than step 1, 2. That is like 100% better, 200% better. But it's still not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a person who truly cares. Like, I freaking care that the person listening to this call will get something out of it. I live and breathe this very moment for that to happen. When I go out on stage these days, I look at my audience and I look at them and I see just the love for them and what they've missed out and how much they need what I know I can give them. And if I can just give to them in the right way, they will listen and they will use it, and it will impact them. It'll impact their children. It'll impact every person around them. It'll impact the future of the world. And do you see the difference?
Yeah.
And you can't get to that level until you've worked on your own internal communication, because you're just too full of yourself. You're too focused on your own performance. You're too focused on what you're going to do and your script. Yeah, it's learning how to harness your own emotions, self-leadership. So I call this internal communication, which is what I'm now labeled as, like the life coach, yada, yada, yada. Internal communication, how you master to communicate with yourself. And then external communication, which is storytelling, death by PowerPoint, the 110 steps. If you marry those two, my friend, that's when you become world class. You become 1%, top 1%, and so on. Yeah, make sense?
Yeah, it does. So caring takes you from the step 6 to 10.
Yeah, for instance, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as an internal communicator, you still have to add all the external communication skills to it. But it's like when we do these interviews, and we did the first, say, 3 or 4 interviews, like literally you as a listener, you can listen back to Lucas. The first 3 ones we did, he was so focused on what am I going to ask next? What am I going to ask next? Where am I in my notes? Where is my next question? And you were so removed from the conversation and discussion itself that you didn't come out as what you felt either. You weren't happy with your performance. You didn't feel authentic, right? But then we had this breakthrough. I don't know if that was like episode 7 or something like that. I don't know. Do you know?
Yeah, don't really remember. I remember a distinct feeling.
Yeah, because you cared. You had this. The reason it came out was because you cared about hearing the answer, right? And that just puts such a different passion in it. And it's similar to you having that feeling for them. Like, this is not for you, that question that you're answering you project not your interest, but their need for that answer in the same intensity. So I've seen you go through that process.
Huh?
Going from clinical to caring. And my guess is, maybe episode 30 or something like that, you will shift over to this latter level 8, 9, 10, where you're not asking the questions for yourself. You're asking them because you know how much it means to the people listening, and how much that will change their life. And you'll probably do that based on the feedback that we'll get from these calls. So anything that you get from this and anything that you learn from this that helps you, all of this is thanks to Lucas. We would not be doing these podcasts otherwise. So send him your love and tell him why. And that will help you steer towards that direction as well. One of the things, I think. What do you think? Yeah.
Well, I agree. It's been a journey to enter into podcasting.
Yeah.
It's not something that I've done before. I don't use social media to that extent. I have 70 posts on Instagram, I believe. So it's something new for me, but it's also been very challenging, or I've grown a lot through this, because it's a very interesting experience for me to do this and to dive deeper into the subjects that we're talking about. And yes, I see a lot of value for me, and I want to connect myself with the audience that we have, the people that are listening to the podcast, to be able to, I don't know, channel the questions so that I have the same interest as our listeners have to what you have. Trying to put myself in that position.
And you'll get there. It's just a sense of maturity. Just give it time. You've already grown through this like tremendously. And you know what the super bonus is, Lucas? Is that when it clicked for you, when you realize that, damn, if I'm interested, everything I do will seem more and be perceived as more interesting, you can use that in everywhere in your life. You can use it in meetings. You can use it at home. You can use it in presentations. You know that you instantly become way better if that's your focus. Yeah. So therefore, that should always be your focus when doing things. So it's a lovely process to grow through, and your process is way faster than mine. I said this took me 8 years. It took you 7 episodes, man. And the next step took me 15 years. And I'm estimating you're done by 30. So
quick learner.
Yeah, you're a quick learner.
All right. Well, thank you. So what? How do you feel about people seeing you as a life coach now, rather than a presentation coach, from the Swedish perspective, at least?
I think it's great. I think it's great because life is hard. Like, we're an organism taken out of our normal habitat, and we're placed in this strange habitat. Right, so we're an organism which should be like literally in the forest or in the woods, around water, around a group of a maximum size of 100 people. We should have sunset and sunrise and go to sleep according to that. We should be eating various kinds of nutrients which are around us, not which come from all over the place. Like, we're an organism taken out of its absolute context into this weird context. And any organism that is placed in a context which is so unfamiliar to them, we're like living in big cities, there's toxins in there, there's constant sounds all over the place, there's artificial light 24/7, there's this constant dopamine injection going on from mobile phones, from Netflix. It's just super unnatural. And the way that we look for people who we want to date happens in an app, and we're judged by things we were never judged by before. We eat stuff we shouldn't be eating. Like, life is freaking hard, man. Because when you're in that, you need guidance to become happy in this state. It's not normal to be happy in that state. You should be. Naturally, you just become so stressed when you take an organism out of its place into this place. So, like, the natural state of human being, if you don't do anything about it, is high levels of stress and fair unhappiness. But as soon as you use some like life skills that we know works, you can thrive in this environment. You can live in London. You can love it. But you got to know how to work with yourself. Otherwise, you can't be the best version of yourself there. Then it's better to move back into the woods with the water and with just 100 people around you, reading books, not having artificial light, going out fishing, going out hiking, camping, doing an easy work. So I'm grateful for getting the opportunity to learn about this in life so that I can help people feel better in that situation. But at the end of the day, I think presentation skills and public speaking is like my core passion from the start. So I'm so grateful for is that I've learned both of these and married them and put them together, because then I can give that to others. And it's taken such a long time, but I'm happy I'm still just 47, because it means that I can still go on for like literally 20, 30 years more just giving these skills and helping people. Thanks to you.
Well, thank you. I like this. I yes, a sense of the the confusion I came from in the beginning of this episode with the clarity I'm getting now is the real difference in how we do presentation skills, because it has the element of life skills. I mean, we talk about it from the neurological perspective, how to hack your own mind and others to be able to, like, in yourself, self-leadership, be and feel the emotions you want to feel, regardless of your surroundings in this moment where the world is where it is, so that you get grounded in your message, in your emotion, and then you start adding the different layers onto it. You understand, okay, well, this is the emotion that I want to drive. We talked about in the last episode, you mentioned, okay, I have 3 things that I want to talk about in this webinar. How do I want to portray this thing, number 1? And what is the emotion connected to it? And how do I want to portray that? Not through just a PowerPoint, but through a story perhaps, or through something else that evokes an emotion that I know based on skills that I've learned. So you keep on adding things, and then you look at presentation skills more holistically than most do, I think, because the normal way of talking about presentation skills is, well, you talk about the subject, you talk about how to build the PowerPoint, you talk about how to deliver it, and then off you go. And then, yes, it works, but is it enough? Not if you want to get the full perspective of presentations and fix the emotional connection to it and feel better as well.
Absolutely, and it's actually dangerous to give the wrong coaching advice when it comes to this, because it influences our lives so much. I think I mentioned that once before, but I've heard this hundreds of times. I'm thinking it could even be like passing 1,000 by now, and that is that somebody somewhere, thinking they knew public speaking and presentation skills, they advised somebody to stop using their hands when communicating. This is such a normal thing. So you got this person who's obviously then all over the place with their hands. Like they're doing this tumble dryer thing, or they're all over the place. I don't know, whatever they're doing. But somewhere in their life, this last example was a woman 20 years ago. This public speaking coach advised them to stop using your hands, lock your hands and hold a pen in front of you, or put them in your pockets or hold them behind you, but do not flap them around. It's disturbing. And it's like, that is the literally worst advice you can give them. And when I saw her, I said, right, try this. Just use your hand, but in a functional manner. So when you say 5, go 5. When you say 5, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you say underline, you go underline. When you say, we're going to go right, we're going to go left, do that. Okay? Now go again. So instead of holding her pen in front of her, she started using gestures. And she was, I wouldn't say shaking, but almost shaking when she came to me after the training, and she said, I cannot believe how amazing that felt. I felt so passionate. I felt so myself. And I looked at the videos, and it's night and day. When I'm holding that pen in front of me, I look like a freaking scared bunny, and I felt like it. Now I felt free. This was such a difference. And what angers me is that 20 years in my career, this has held me back monumentally in interviews, in presentations, because that advice. So what we always strive for is to have a neuroscientific, biological, biochemical, even genetical, but like science-based advice to what you're going to do when you do it. Because it's not guesswork, and you have a person's life in your hand. So if that's you, because there's definitely going to be people here who's had that advice, just start using functional gestures instead. But that's just one of so many of these strange advices that are given in public speaking and presentation skills. So I'm very proud of that. We stick to that as much as humanly possible.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think that wraps this up pretty nicely. We do have our new segment.
Oh, yes.
And you just talked about it, but it's the skill of the week. Now, you just went through functional gestures, so I don't know if you want to go through it again or if you want to pick another one.
Nah, I want to pick another one.
Okay, so David is going through his chart, and while he's doing that, let's just say this new segment, losing my words, skill of the week. Try this skill. We're going to pull one skill out of the 110-step skills chart every week. Try it in your next presentation and watch the difference.
Okay, I'm going to go a little bit theme-based here, because last time we went with sound effects by hand. This time we're going to go by sound effect by mouth.
Woo!
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, okay. This is again. I do this meetings, presentations, everyday conversation. Can't stop doing it. Love it, and it's such a mood heightener and emphasizer, accentuator, and it grabs attention. Right, so it's multiple thing. Swiss tool. Swiss multi-tool. Okay, so the way you go is you have your hand and you're going to portray that a chart goes up. So we have Q1 and it's going to now grow on your PowerPoint. And instead of just you going with your hand, going up with your hand, if you're listening to this, I just moved my hand from the bottom to the top. But instead of just moving it, you go, whew, right? And then for the Q2, you go, whew. And Q3, you go, whew. And then Q4, you go, was Q4 better? I think it was. Let's see it. Whoa, whoa, woof. Oh my God, that was better. Woo! And it's just playful. I love it. And when you do, we got an increase, we got a decrease. We had three things. Boom, boom, boom. Just play with like what naturally would have come out of you, but so many people resist in doing this. You should see, this is so much fun when I do this for like the top management in the biggest stock exchange companies, like who turn over billions and billions. These suit-dressed people, I've got 8 of them in my room. There's CEOs, there's CFOs, CTOs, and so on. And I go like, well, you're now going to present the quarterly reports with sound effects. And they're like, what? And it's such out of their nature. And then we do it, and it just instantly becomes so much better. They have so much more fun. And some of them keep on using it, but they think it's out of their culture, and people wouldn't expect that from them.
Yeah, I can see that a lot of people are not using sound effects.
Yeah.
And I can see how this will feel awkward.
Yeah.
But I can also see it from a perspective point of view where a person, if you are not using sound effects today, and then suddenly in your next presentation you start using them, people will just, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
It will be such a contrast to what you've been doing before. So
it's almost like a power move.
Yeah. So you will definitely see a difference.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're so confident, you can do sound effects.
Yeah.
It's a power move. I love it. All right.
Cool. All right. Thank you for today. And thank you for listening. If you want to check it out, we have a new webinar out. The link to the webinar is in the show notes. Check it out. It's a free training, 35 to 45 minutes, something like that, with David on the top 3 things to do if you want to become a top 1% presenter. It's a really good webinar. Check it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
And see you next week.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.